If you're in business, you're in sales. I'm Jamie Gorman, and I'm the host of Be Better at Business TV. And I'm joined today by speaker, author, but most importantly, sales expert, Mike Schmidtmann of For Profit. And we're here to talk about and discuss how we can make your business be better at sales. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Jamie.
Mike, I know that there's a lot of things that small business owners have to do on a weekly basis. What priority should a business owner put on sales with all the other things going on?
Right. Well, Jamie, that's a great question. What our company does is we're usually brought in to help a company once they've stopped growing.
Okay.
So here's the typical progression. A person works for a company, they get sick and tired of working for other people, they have an entrepreneurial seizure, they spin off on their own, so they set up their own company.
Right.
And because they're very good at what they do, the company starts off very well, it grows, it prospers, it reaches a certain point, and then that growth stops.
Okay.
And it stops because whatever made them successful has reached the point of its maximum return. Sometimes people work through it, oftentimes they stop, other times they get sick of not making money and sell the business. A lot of times when they bring us in, it's when they've hit that wall.
Okay.
So they've grown, they stopped. Now they're panicking, why aren't we growing more? Then they bring us in. And typically it's one of three reasons. So one is they don't have a good focus on sales, they don't know how to build new business generation.
Okay.
That's one. Secondly, they reach the maximum amount of work that they can personally do.
Right.
And so they need to bring other people in. They don't know how to attract and hire good people.
Right.
So that's a limiter. And the third one is they're busy, but they're not making any money.
Okay.
And so that's frustrating after a period of time, of course. So those are usually the three things. Now, having said that, a person should spend their time where their biggest problem is. So if sales is the biggest problem, then they need to devote time for the biggest problem. If their problem is sourcing people, then they need to spend time on that. But there's a story of Steve Jobs when he was at Apple, and he learned this lesson, that no matter how busy he was, and you can appreciate a Fortune 10 company,
Yeah.
multi-billion dollar, involved in many different types of technology. So you get people issues, advertising, product issues. But Steve Jobs, as busy as he was, would always spend 3 hours a day on his biggest issue,
Okay.
his biggest focus. So for example, when he was involved with Pixar movie studios,
Right.
and Toy Story, the first Toy Story movie was a pivotal event
Absolutely.
for him.
Yeah.
He spent 3 hours a day on Pixar. When the Macintosh was coming out, he spent 3 hours a day on the Macintosh. When
Okay.
the iPod was coming out, he spent 3 hours a day. So whatever his biggest issue was, he would spend 3 hours a day. Now that's a great discipline. Now, having been a small business person myself, I recognize 3 hours is a lot
That's
per
a
day.
lot of time, especially when you're doing the work, right?
Exactly. So that may not be practical, but the concept stays, which
Right.
is to say you devote your time to the area of most importance. Now, a lot of business owners, I make the analogy, they're too busy mopping the floor to fix the roof,
Right.
which means they're busy, working, and yet the most important area of their business they're neglecting. I'll give you an example. I was in Southern California about a month ago, and there was a business, and he'd grown it to about $3 million, which is a
Okay.
good-sized business.
Yeah.
But he knew he needed to hire extra people to take his business to the next level. And I asked him, what's your biggest business priority?
Right.
And he said, recruiting. I said, how much time did you spend last week on your biggest priority? He said, none.
Right.
I said, well, there's your answer.
Okay.
So to answer your question succinctly, is whatever the biggest priority is where they need to devote a certain percentage of their time. And so
Yeah.
if as a small business, if you feel your number one problem is that you don't have enough business, and in most small business that's the case, you need to devote a certain amount of time to growing that business.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things that I do at Sigma Business Management, of course, is help people find
Right.
what is that big obstacle to their growth or to what
Right.
they're trying to do with their vision. A lot of times it is marketing and sales. The other thing that you said is kind of I like that transition because I use that a lot where people start up, they enjoy a certain level of success, but then there's some obstacle, and so we help them find that obstacle. But the other thing is, even one of the things I think you said, that if you're growing your business, at some point sales will be that obstacle, right? Because you get to that point where now you have 5 employees and you lose a certain contract, but you still need to have these 5 employees, so that's when sales kind of comes up and becomes that priority. And so, and I kind of tell people, and I started with that, if you're in business, you're in sales, so it might not be your biggest obstacle now, but certainly long term, sales is always going to be one of those things that you always need to be doing, I would assume.
Well, let me speak to that as well, Jamie. You make a very good point. We are all in sales. We're always in sales. And I hear a lot of times, what's the economy? How are people doing? And I would say that it's, as Charles Dickens would say, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. Right. I have never seen a time when well-qualified, hardworking people who add value, they are literally as busy as they can possibly be. Mm-hmm. Yet many small companies are struggling right now, and of course there are a lot in the middle as well. So what's the answer to that question? And the answer is all of the above.
Okay.
It is in fact a great time to grow a business right now. It's also a terrible time depending on your attitude toward growing the business. But right. If a person is good at what they do, they're offering real business value to their clients, if they market themselves effectively, there's no reason they can't be growing extremely rapidly right now.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point, that, just because the economy's slow.
You like all these good points, don't
you? Well, that's what I love about this show. You're just kind of having a business discussion, which I love. But it's great that, even though the economy slows, it hasn't stopped. Right? There's still people out there spending money, and it's a matter of finding where that is, and then adding value, and then being able to sell that aspect of it.
I often think, Jamie, that it's a matter of perception. I used to have a sales guy, and he would come in, and I would say, "Jay, how was the day today?" He says, "Mike, they're anxious to buy." Now, he didn't say anxious, but I'll paraphrase him a little bit. But his attitude was, they're ready to buy. There are people out there right now who need and want what we have.
Yes.
And I think this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If a person sits around, mopes in their office saying nobody's buying right now, the economy's terrible, they're right. If they also say, a lot of people need what I have, there's a big market out there, they just don't know who I am and how to find me, that's up to me. If they have that attitude, they're right as well.
Great.
And so for a small business, I don't think there's a better time to grow the business than right now. Because of the business disruption and turbulence, it's a great time to grow a business.
Great. Let's see if we have any questions from our audience. Alyssa.
I've been thinking about starting a business, but I'm not a salesperson. Should I not be in a business?
Yeah, so, I think people kind of start businesses because they're a plumber or a carpenter or something like that. They don't think about sales because they have a couple things on the burner. Mm-hmm. But what do you think? If somebody can't really see themselves as a salesperson, should they get into that business?
Well, I think the answer is individual for every person, but I think there's a minimum amount of business development that a person has to have.
Okay.
And so if they hate sales, they hate representing themselves, and they hate talking about who they are and what they can do and the problems they can solve, they probably should not be in business, because you have to be able to do that,
right,
at least at a minimal level. Now, there are people, I know a company, for example, and they're a Cisco reseller, and they have a lot of engineers. Engineers famously often don't like to sell and market. In fact, they don't like salespeople very much a lot of times. This company is extremely successful because they are so good at what they do, and they're so active in all the areas that you're an expert in, which is the social media. They comment a lot on technical subjects, and so they're subject matter experts. They're so good at what they do, people find them.
Yes.
So there is a type of a business person who can succeed if they're transcendentally, brilliantly great at what they do.
And tell people about it.
And find a way to get that market out there, and they can be found. However, those people are rare. Yeah. Generally speaking, if you want to grow a business to make a certain amount of income and to build a certain size that's interesting and fun and gives you a great lifestyle, which is what small businesses want, You've got to be able to market yourself at least to a minimum degree.
Right. And I find a lot of small business owners are so excited and so passionate about their product. Sometimes that passion gets them over that I'm not a salesperson hurdle.
Absolutely.
Because they just enjoy talking about what they do, and,
Right.
and that kind of drives them through. Great.
Exactly.
Well, Mike, we thank you for being here today. And was there anything you want to share? What's going on with Mike Schmidtmann and For Profit?
Well, thank you, Jamie. A couple things. Our company works with companies that get stuck. And so you can tell, having been a small business owner myself for years, and having squandered a lot of money in bad decisions over those times, so we learned some tough lessons. But I have a lot of empathy for people who have their own business and want to grow. It's tough, but what they're doing right now is the right thing. They're working on their business.
Right.
As Michael Gerber says in the E-Myth, most people work in their business. They're busy, busy, busy. As I say, they're mopping the floor. They don't bother fixing the roof. If you spend time on your business, on your priority, and improve it, that business will grow. And that's fun, it's rewarding and profitable. So the people on this video are more likely to be growing their business because they're working on their business,
Great.
working with you on how to improve it.
Great. Thanks, Mike. I'm Jamie Gorman. I'm the host of Be Better at Business TV. I'm also the CEO of Sigma Business Management. We do business planning, meeting facilitation, and business education. Thank you for joining us. If this content was helpful to you, please feel free to share it and share it with your colleagues and your clients. And come back with us each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.